Hey, what's up, guys? We're back on back-to-back days, Chuck and Chris, to bring you another Underdog Fantasy Best Ball Draft. Chris, what's going on? It's been 24 hours since I've seen you. Any news?
Well, it has been just one day, but with training camps opening, we have had a little bit of news break today. I think on yesterday's show, Chuck, we talked about pup list concerns with Kendra Miller of the New Orleans Saints. Another player that there was some risk in there. I guess there still is some risk of that happening with is Isaiah Pacheco of the Kansas City Chiefs, but looks like he was spotted at practice today in a non-contact jersey. Obviously, that's still somewhat negative, but it's better than we were expecting. Ramondre Stevenson, my favorite running back in my rankings. We all here, I think, have a decent amount of him in our portfolios. The Patriots worked out Leonard Fournette today. This is the second season in a row they have worked him out. He worked out with New England last year before returning to Tampa Bay. So I think, Chuck, we got to be a little careful with Ramondre over the next few days if the Patriots are bringing in another running back to join their offense this season. At a minimum, it would definitely make selecting someone like Pierre Strong at the end of drafts a much tougher decision here if they do in fact bring in Fournette. So there are some other things that have been going on. We can talk about them throughout the show. I am going to draft a Best Ball Mania 4 once again here. I'm going to enter the lobby now. So if anybody was planning on joining us this evening, afternoon, depending on where you are in the country or the world, feel free to jump into the Best Ball Mania 4 Fast Draft lobby now and see if you can have a good time against me today. 11 people we're waiting for here in this room. Chuck, I am not shocked by some of the recent moves in ADP. We were talking a little bit before we hit the live button. We saw this happen literally on yesterday's show where I guess we both did, passed on Treylon Burks of the Tennessee Titans as he just kept falling like a rock. ADP is down to 76 right now, was in the mid-60s literally 24 hours ago. Low 50s to right around pick 60 before Hopkins signed. So the field has ruled on this one. We are not buying Treylon Burks in the Tennessee offense now that DeAndre Hopkins, at least by ADP, we're not buying Treylon Burks any longer. Kind of feels like he will turn into a buying opportunity if he keeps falling, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, yesterday he went close to pick 90, I think. And so even though his ADP is down right now, you're going to see him fall, I don't know, 10 plus spots in every draft. Just consider how far is he going to fall next week. I'm not going to start scooping him up yet unless he gets to pick 100 or something in our drafts. But I mean, he's going to fall further. We've seen it with a bunch of guys before. So just be careful if you're drafting Treylon around his ADP right now.
We have an older, again, injuries not being predictive. We talked about that a little bit on yesterday's show, Chuck, but DeAndre Hopkins has not played a full 16, 17 game season since 2020. So it is feasible to suggest we're maybe being a little overly optimistic on Hopkins in Tennessee. And that is why Burks could turn into a much better opportunity if he continues to fall here. What else from a news perspective is there? Yes, Alvin Kamara, who I did draft on yesterday's stream. His ADP is up about half a round, pick 94 right now on average, and I still think he will continue to climb, and I am interested in him at cost for sure. This will be, I think, draft number 35 for me personally in Best Ball Mania 4 this season. Scaling up a little bit as we get closer to things is my goal. So I'm pretty happy with how my exposures are turning out. We'll see if I'm able to get a few more players that I have not been able to select thus far this season. I don't want to flag plant something and then say that it's what I'm targeting directly, because then maybe someone who has jumped into the draft lobby is watching and is going to blow out my spot. But I can say that I am going to try to stack an offense I am personally very low on today and see if I can get there. So that's the goal on this stream. I've got the third overall pick. Got to think about how that changes what I literally just mentioned here. So that'll be kind of interesting to see how this goes. Quite a few badge users in this draft. So this could be a good room, Chuck. It could be pretty close to, as we like to look at it, the most expert style draft we see in this format. Do you have a strategy that you have honed in on at the number 3 pick, or are you just best player available and then trying to correlate?
My favorite My favorite strategy is hoping that Jamar Chase falls to number 3. Sometimes
I like.
Justin Jefferson. I've never gotten Justin Jefferson at 3, but I've seen him go at 3. I think I'm mostly picking Cup right now. For some reason, I like Cup more than Hill and Christian McCaffrey. I've talked about. For me, it's just difficult because I typically like to take a running back in the second or third round with the third overall. So um, go either way, though.
I want to say I have slightly more Cup than Tyreek Hill at this point, so that is obviously on the back of my mind. I feel like we've got a couple of interesting correlated usernames here. We've got Blow My Waddle picking fourth, and a
I like that.
Dolphin Slayer. Are these both Dolphin fans? Who knows? Well, the strategy of hoping Jamar Chase falls to me at number 3 did not work out today. I am going to go with Cooper Cup, who you selected at pick number 4, I believe, yesterday, but I'm fine with that here. And maybe I will be a little more successful correlating him with the Giant than you were.
Yeah, I had it on my mind to grab one of those receivers at the end, but then we get to the end and it's like, which one? You know, do we really need them for week 17? Maybe, probably not.
The why if you miss out on Barkley and Darren Waller, which of course you did in that draft, obviously take your pick of your favorite New York Giant wide receiver to bet on at the very end because they all go extremely close. Isaiah Hodgins and Paris Campbell right around pick 175, and then around pick 200, each of Jalen Hyatt, Wandale Robinson, Darius Slayton tend to go. Even someone like veteran Sterling Shepard is available, basically undrafted. So lots of different directions the Giants wide receiver room could go this year. I think that's why they're all at the end of the draft board for most players.
Do any of those players, like, do you prefer any of them over the rest?
I'm in line with, we talked about it a few weeks back. I thought Paris Campbell had the best shot to come out of that group. And obviously the reporting kind of confirmed that, but I still feel like it's Darren Waller as the number one pass catching option
Yeah.
there. So he's the one I'm most interested in, frankly. What was I just looking at here? Seeing what I can do with this offense that I want to get some exposure to. So, interesting. All right. Well, if I have the opportunity to start building out the stack I'm looking for, Chuck, I will begin talking about it in a couple of minutes. I'm looking at a couple players that start to go in rounds 3 or later. All right. We have kind of a very traditional first round today so far. Nothing's out of line of what we usually see here. So this could be a fairly predictable draft, which does, believe it or not, matter a little bit, at least to me. Feels like you can plan out your picks a little better when you see you're working with a field of users that tend to go with the consensus, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely something about drafting in sharper rooms. We prefer not to draft in sharper rooms, but if no one's going to snipe our Herbert or Burrow, whatever it is, then Burrow's a big one. Not for us today because we got Cooper Cup. But
Not yet, anyway. No, I don't expect. I'm not best player available, maybe for me in round 2, but I don't expect T Higgins to be that player for me. All right. Nick Chubb, believe it or not, that is later than we have seen him go in recent drafts here at the round 1-2 turn. Devontae Adams is the one that is sliding for sure. I don't think it's reflected fully in his ADP, but I have seen him definitely creep into this range in the second round a little bit more than he had been before. Obviously, the player that would be ideal if I'm correlating with Cooper Kupp here in the second round would be Saquon Barkley. I don't know if that's the direction I want to go. But if it falls to me, I may just have to do it because it's one of those things we've talked about a few times, Chuck, on these shows. If the ideal start just kind of falls to you, sometimes you just have to eat it because you're not always going to get what you plan on, right? So those opportunities, you can't really sneer at them when they present themselves to you. And now one pick away from it, we'll see. We shall see, Chuck. I am trying to run out the clock on Blow My Waddle, who took Jalen Hurts. So yeah, I don't think I was intentionally trying to go Saquon here in the second round, but you know what? There's worse. There's definitely worse moves.
Oh yeah, no, we love this. Don't have to worry about the correlation anymore. It can go Daniel Jones or Matthew Stafford. Man, blow my waddle. That's one thing about best ball. Like it killed redraft leagues. We don't get great names like that as often anymore. You get to make your username once on Underdog, and that's it. You can't change it based on your favorite player that year. It's just, you know,
Had not thought about that, but you are 100% correct. Like there are some funny names lingering out there that are just no longer entering the brainwaves for most people. Okay, so I am going to reach a little bit. A little bit. This player does go in this round, so it's not completely crazy. But Chuck, I am taking Calvin Ridley here at pick
yep.
27. So I find these stacks that go third round, fourth round, fifth round to be some of the hardest to draft unless you're intentionally trying to get them. Jacksonville is one. The Los Angeles Chargers are the other, and they're both offenses I want a little more of in my portfolio this year.
Yeah, I say that, and then I still end up. I get to Christian Kirk, and I'm drafting Mike Williams a bit, but I guess Quentin Johnson too. But I don't know. Everyone else is just there's so many guys we like in the first few rounds. As we saw, have we seen Brees Hall go off the board? I think right before we started the show, they said they placed him on the pup list, the physically unable to perform. But I don't think it matters because he's expected to play, right?
I mean, we're taking the long view here on the season. He will be back for the most important part
Yeah.
of the season, which is the second half of the season in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're able to sneak through some rosters with Brees Hall and he starts to play super well, especially if the price drops, both him and Josh Jacobs going here in the third round, it's a high pick in general to invest in fantasy football. But look, Chuck and I have been doing these shows for couple months now, and we would appreciate if everybody was along for the ride every single show. But we know that not all of you have been watching these since early May. Josh Jacobs and Brees Hall were going right around where Ramondre Stevenson, Derrick Henry, and Saquon Barkley were selected on this show. So now we're getting pretty decent closing line value on these players, and that's something we have to weigh as we build out our rosters the rest of the way here.
I mean, it would be pretty cool if like Leonard Fournette or Dalvin Cook signed with the Jets. Would just tank Brees Hall's ADP a little bit. I can end up grabbing a little bit more.
As we go through the early rounds here, what are some things, obviously I'm kind of actively looking at how I want to build up the rest of this roster. So I am going to punt off conversation on you a little bit more than usual, Chuck, but you're at a significantly higher number of drafts than me. I think last I checked in with you, you said something like 162. You're probably higher than that now. Are there any things that you're trying to do a little bit more intentionally? I know you shared your exposures with me recently. You're pretty high on the elite quarterbacks. Are you avoiding those guys a little bit more now, or are you not really worried about it at this point?
I'm gonna try to avoid. So Patrick Mahomes, I'm pretty much mostly only taking with Kelsey, and then Hurts, I was taking a bunch regardless. But yeah, and Josh Allen with him falling, like I mentioned this yesterday, I don't understand why he's so far behind Hurts and Mahomes. Isn't Josh Allen the QB1 every single year? Um,
I've,
like
I've
for
got him number
fantasy
one.
purposes.
I've got him number one in my projections set as well. His rushing production always tends to happen, but I feel like it's not discussed as much as some of these other guys for some reason, Chuck.
And I want to get more Lamar, and you guys already know that I'm pretty high on Justin Fields. But I think lately, like my focus right now is to get the guys I haven't been getting. Like I've been focusing so much on correlation that my exposures are, well, they're still slightly concentrated in a few guys. I want them more concentrated on my biggest leans, and so I've been foregoing correlation a little bit and just trying to get more of combos of my guys. And elite tight ends are a big deal right now too. I think they're just too cheap, and I think I was overlooking them a little bit too much.
Yeah, that this T.J. Hawkinson, George Kittle, Kyle Pitts. I'd be interested in where you draw the line. Dallas Goedert, Darren Waller. That's kind of where I'm going to draw the line. They're players I don't feel like I have enough of in my portfolio. Was able to get Goddard yesterday, so I think I'm in the same page as you there. I want to get a few more of those guys on my teams.
Well, Goddard, I'm pretty sure I've never drafted Goddard without Jalen Hurts, and because I was missing on AJ and Devonta Smith so much, I was drafting a bunch of Dallas Goddard just to have that stack. George Kittle. So the argument for George Kittle or against George Kittle is he scored twice as many touchdowns as career average last season, I think, and most of those touchdowns came in 2 games. And so it's like the pro of excuse me, sorry.
It's all right.
The pro of drafting George Kittle is the hope that he gives you 30 fantasy points in the playoff weeks. As for like his regular season points contribution to your advance rate, I'm not sure if he deserves that draft pick, but because of the power that he can possibly give you in the playoff weeks, it's okay to get to him there. TJ Hawkinson, target stud, probably stronger in a full PPR than in half PPR here, and then Mullen on Darren Waller and trying to get more on Kyle Pitts.
I don't think I have a tremendous amount of Kyle Pitts. Obviously, I'm at the turn here. We're going to double down and take Christian Kirk.
Love it.
Have a couple of different Jaguars locked in already. I'll look at some of my exposures in a second here after this comes back around. Let me, and obviously you guys can see my screen. I got to remember that when I'm driving the show here. I'm going to reach a little bit just to lock this down because pick number, again, I've intentionally built the entire thesis of this roster on the Jacksonville Jaguars, and Trevor Lawrence goes around pick 65, which is closer to the other end of the 6th round than I'm picking in. So given that this is what I'm angling for specifically, Chuck, yes, it's a little bit of a reach, but I'm okay with doing things like this when I have a specific strategy in mind for a team.
Especially, well, what I was going to look at was who has ETN, and it's the guy with 4 running backs. So it's probably a decent chance he would take Trevor Lawrence if you let him go past you. And we see this guy double tap the elite QBs early. Not a strategy that we advocate here at Occupy.
Some weird things are happening in this room, and I'll contribute to that and take Lawrence about 15 picks ahead of ADP. But I just want to be clear, I'm okay with doing that when there's these correlation reasons on your rosters. So that's why I did that tonight.
Yeah, when we're like, getting towards the playoffs, towards the end of the season, we're not going to be thinking about the ADPs, whatever. Just get your guy, like, especially for how important Trevor Lawrence is to this team. Like, just take him. And we have a all-star point guard in the chat. What's up, guys? Got some time to watch this draft live today? Hey, we appreciate you tuning in live. That's awesome.
Yeah, we do most of our shows in the evening hours here on the East Coast. So if these midday shows are a little better, midday to early evening, dinner time on the East Coast is a little better for some of y'all, please let us know in the comments or like leave a comment in the video if you didn't catch this live, because we are definitely open to moving around our start times. And obviously rotating the cast on these shows as much as possible to get you guys some of that content here. Chuck, with the Jaguars, I am most interested in a Carolina Panther bring back in week 17. We've also got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in week 16 and the Baltimore Ravens in week 15. So this is why I kind of forced myself to do something like this tonight, because I'm already looking at the draft board in a completely different way, because this is not how I typically draft a team when I get Cooper Kupp. If I'm locked in on that Giants and Rams stack, I'm not even thinking about these players. So that's why I really like being a little more intentional about trying to stack differently, given the way that I'm building this team right now and building up my portfolio.
No, I love it. We talk about, unique combinations. I don't think we have to get that unique in this contest because the finals are so small, but this is, if this team gets to the finals, who else is going to have this exact start?
So we will, and I'm okay with going a little hero running back here. I may, at the turn here, just continue to build out my pass catcher core depending on what falls to me. But once again, made this point at the end of yesterday's stream. I am done with Jaguar players now. Obviously, there are others out there like Evan Engram, Zay Jones at wide receiver around pick 120. I like those players in general, but I've reached the point of diminishing return now with the allocation I have to Jaguar pass catchers. And so I'm going to cap it at 2 teammates with Trevor Lawrence and look to get exposure to high upside players on other rosters now.
So we've talked about this a bit, using some of your early draft capital on players from the same team, and we used 3rd and 4th pick on Jaguars players. You mentioned you're going to be looking for a wide receiver next, but does that play into your decisions at all, where on a typical week, we probably won't expect both of these players to contribute points, that maybe they'll ping pong whoever gets a touchdown, big play, something like that? So
yeah, that's exactly kind of what plays into my decision making here. Obviously, I'll take it if we have that week where the Jaguars just are the best team in the NFL and they score 45 real life points and each of these guys have a couple touchdowns. That'd be awesome. But pragmatically, that's not going to happen. if it does happen, it may happen like once throughout the regular season. So we need wide receiver ones. I've got Cooper Kupp, and I hope most weeks I have the wide receiver one for Jacksonville there with Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk. So I need to take some shots on these other wide receiver rooms here.
We have Stephen B in the chat. Need a draft with the fantasy footballers.
That would be an interesting collab if we were able to pull something like that off. We don't often do guest streams on here, but obviously if that's something the people want, we can try to invest some of our time and effort into doing a little more networking in the industry, getting some other people on here. We're more than open to that. It's just not something that admittedly that we've really emphasized. So, but great question or great comment, I guess, and feedback. We will definitely see if that's something that's viable for us. Chuck, around pick 70, I don't necessarily have a specific player I'm looking to get, but this is right around, I guess the other reason I want a wide receiver here is this is right around where I see a huge tier break in what's left at wide receiver. Some of the clear top end plays at the position are pretty much gone by pick number 80. So that's why I really think it's critical to get at least 4 wide receivers in the first 7 rounds.
I completely agree. Yeah, 4 is the minimum I feel comfortable. Of course, there's drafts where we can't achieve that, and that's okay as long as it's not every draft. Don't force it. Like if there's a guy that falls at a different position and you're strong at the position, I mean, we have enough drafts that we can do a few things. What I was going to ask you though, we talked about how the winning teams from last season were both drafted yesterday, 7-18 last year. Did you happen to see Pat Kerrane's stream? He did 7 drafts in a row and had 18 guests to commemorate 7-18. And the first draft had Pat Kerrane, the winner of BB1, Justin Herzig, the winner of BB2, BBM2, Liam Murphy, and then the winner of the regular season prize last year for best ball, King Cap. And just watching these guys debate their takes and like not argue, but get a good discussion going. It was very entertaining. If you have the time to check that out later.
No, I will definitely have to fire that up after we finish the show here. I did not get to catch it live, but it was on my list to review that. One of the things, frankly, that I think I have been really poor at in the past is consuming content from other really, really good content creators in the industry. I tend to rely on my own analysis, which I think is a good framework in a lot of areas of life, but there are a lot of great opinions in the fantasy football space, and I feel like I should weigh them a little more heavily. So that is actually something I have made a little bit of a higher effort to do this year. All right. So I probably shouldn't be surprised that Dolphin Slayer went with the double stack of Kadarius Toney and Travis Kelce. I was hoping to get Toney at pick 70, but I will go with the clear wide receiver 2 on maybe the next best option that's left with Gabe Davis and the Buffalo Bills.
Man, Gabe Davis was one of my biggest fades last season in the 3rd round. And this year, it's like, if he does what he did last year, then he's a great pick at late 6th, early 7th.
It's the same player, same role. Nothing's tremendously changed with expected usage, and we get him 3 rounds cheaper. 100% agree with you. I think this is a great spot to take him. And admittedly, maybe I could have waited until it would have been close. Pick 75 to snag him because the Josh Allen owner is on the other side of the board here. But look, I know I'm not the only person that in a vacuum is interested in Gabe Davis, so I had to get him where I took him in my mind.
It's interesting. I noticed Josh Allen went in the 3rd round, but I didn't see that the Stephon Diggs guy was able to get him back in the 3rd round. And that's just it's so powerful compared to the guys taking Josh Allen to pair with Diggs in the 2nd round. Like you basically just got an extra pick, like a bonus Chris Olave,
That was really good value on Alexander Madison here at pick 72. He's been going about a round earlier than that. Like to see that there. Let's see what the correlations suggest I should do. Gabe Davis with the Patriots. Plenty of options to get a Patriot a little bit later on, so I'm not super worried about that. My Carolina Panther option in Miles Sanders just went, so I'll have to consider a later option there. All right. What do I want to do in the next 15 seconds? I think, well, since it has fallen to me, Chuck, Darren Waller of the New York Giants. Let's not forget I started with Cooper Kupp and Saquon Barkley, and that's still a Week 17 game that I'm very interested in.
Yeah, pick up a Carolina guy later, and it's two pretty good game stacks. Hopefully, high scoring games. And all-star point guard in the chat, Brees Hall placed on the pup list. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's. I think it's expected though, as long as, and I don't have a great understanding of it, but just from what I read, as long as he doesn't start the season on the pup list, he's
That's
eligible to come
correct.
back right away. Otherwise, he has to wait 6 weeks, I think. And so the
That's
expectation
correct.
is he's going to suit up for week one. He's probably not going to be a full go. I think we mentioned Michael Carter was announced as RB2 or something like that. So, but I mean, like Chris just said, by the second half of the season, as long as Brees Hall is taking the bulk of the work, then we're very happy with that draft pick.
Yeah, I think as of now, we can still treat him fairly well. I'm not adjusting my season-long projection on him just yet. But if we get closer to week one kicking off and he hasn't resumed practice, that's going to change the math a little bit. So I say I do say buy the dip on Brees Hall here. If he starts to go in the 30s or lower, I'm fine with that, especially with the mindset of we're not worried about week one with Brees Hall. We should be drafting enough players to be able to get through that early part of the season if he misses some time anyway.
And another thing I've mentioned a few streams ago, like if you are uncomfortable with your week one roster, that's not a bad thing. You should probably be uncomfortable because we don't really care about the week how we feel in week one. We care about how we feel in week 9, 10, 11 up to the playoffs. So
First or last, that's what we're building. I know it
yeah.
sounds a little cliche, but we are going for it all with these builds. This is nowhere close to building out your traditional fantasy football team in the home league or anything like that. I think I mentioned with Brian Chuck, maybe you feel similarly. These these contests have broken my brain with like regular redraft leagues. Like I have no idea what I'm doing anymore when I sit down for those drafts. Obviously I know ADP, but it's just that my focus has shifted so much that it's really hard for me to play in those formats these days.
I'm only in one redraft league now, just with my friends that I went to high school with. And it's like I go in there after doing hundreds of best ball drafts, like, oh, I'm more prepared than anyone else in here. I'm going to make the best decisions, especially with how incorrect or just how different the Yahoo ESPN rankings are from
Mhm.
underdogs. And I got crushed, man.
Happens every year. And then usually, if you really want to get into it, grind like waivers and stuff like that or free
Yeah.
agent ads, maybe you can play your way into that postseason bracket. But I don't know, man. Between sweating these lineups and then maybe getting some daily fantasy action down, like I tend to ignore the home league by the end of the season. It just is what it is.
Like, this is
Uh,
just better.
Yeah, I 100% agree. The landscape in playing these contests has shifted probably for the better. There's nothing better than drafting. Drafting is the best part of fantasy football. That's why this industry has been growing. And the fact that you don't have to worry about manipulating your starting lineup
Mhm.
is really what is the best part of these contests. And obviously the upside of winning a lot of money.
Yeah, it's some money for me, but I mean, this is so fun. Like, I hop on a stream just to, I'm not even drafting right now. I'm just talking about it with Chris, and I love this. Like, I could talk about this all day. And you guys think I'm excited about this? Like, NBA dropped yesterday, and I was telling Chris these lobbies were taking forever to fill up. But if you can get in right now, these ADPs are still incorrect. They updated yesterday. Some guys jumped 20 spots. Russell Westbrook, Cam Johnson, just off the top of my head. But go draft and draft those two guys specifically.
Cam Johnson. I'm so bad at the NBA. That is a Phoenix Sun player, or was at some point.
He
That's
was a
still remaining.
Phoenix Sun. Just got
Okay,
traded to the Nets
there we
towards the end of
go.
the season, and he got the bag from the Nets. So
See, I know enough to be dangerous when it comes to NBA. Maybe I will find my way into one of those lobbies here. Alvin Kamara, one of the
I like it.
risers in recent line movement here with ADP, if you will, and correlates with the Los Angeles Rams. He's playing for the Saints, their Week 16 opponent. Happy to have him as my RB2 in the 8th round.
And Rough Draft J12 in the chat said the champ is here. I happen to know Rough Draft J12 is a big Titans fan, and he asked me the other day, what fantasy football analyst do I like? And I was like, there's these two guys on YouTube that are pretty good, Chuck and Chris. And he's like, well, I want to hear about DeAndre Hopkins. And I'm like, well, go look at the thumbnail for our next show. And it was yesterday's show. And we talked about DeAndre Hopkins for maybe 30 seconds. And basically, we think he's appropriately priced now. Good ceiling. Draft him.
Yeah,
Down
and I
one
think
for
his
anyone.
ADP. Yep, I think his ADP is fair, right around pick 43. I think it is right now. I have him ranked in half point, pick wide receiver either like 31 or 32. So he's right there in that wide receiver 2 range for these types of contests, with obviously access to a ceiling if things go well. So the biggest thing, let's dedicate a little more time talking about Hopkins for the viewers here, but I will jump back on that thread of discussion after I make my pick. I said this player is going to end up being my highest exposed player by the end of things here at wide receiver. And I still want exposure in week 17 to Chiefs Bengals when I can get it somewhere in my teams. So Tyler Boyd, come on down to the squad. And I've got a 1-2-5-1 through 9 rounds, which is very, very, very often what I end up with.
Yeah, this is probably my typical start now that I'm usually taking a tight end in the first 7 rounds. And on the D-Hop note, Rough Draft said, my man D-Hop about to have 4 receptions for 125 yards per game. Yeah, man.
The thing about getting DeAndre Hopkins in a tournament like this or in your home league or anything like that is if you are into the idea of correlation and stacking, Ryan Tannehill is going to be extremely cheap pretty much the entire way through the offseason right up to kickoff in week 1. So I haven't been able to do it yet here in Best Ball Mania 4, but that's what I'm most interested in doing when I select DeAndre Hopkins for the first time as a Titan, being able to get to Ryan Tannehill in round 17 or 18, plus maybe still being able to get access to like an elite quarterback and an elite wide receiver or tight end stack earlier in the draft. I think that's a really good way to build a roster this year.
I like it. And he wants to talk about Derrick Henry, too. I need to understand why Derrick Henry's an afterthought. If 1,500 rushing yards and almost 2K total yards is considered breaking down, man, I don't know what to say. I mean, is it just people think he's going to slow down because of his age?
He's somewhat of he's definitely an outlier at the position, but there's a lot of analysis that has been done over the years about RBs as they age, not necessarily being as efficient as they were on their first contract. In his case, maybe second, third contract. I am still buying Derrick Henry. He's RB2 in my rankings this year. I don't trust really any of the backups that they have brought in behind him. I think they are mostly viable in scenarios where Henry misses some games or gets injured, misses a lot of games. But the thing about the price, I'm happy with it because I'm not going to, even if I like Derrick Henry as like the third best fantasy scorer in my rankings, I'm still going to draft him in the second round or even the third round. I'm not going to take him any earlier than I have to. If you, on your own end have players that you love, I would strongly recommend that you keep that in mind. Like, don't pay much more than you have to for somebody just because you think the field is way off. Try to use ADP as your guide. Seems like a pretty basic framework, but I do think it's something we don't discuss enough. So just figured I'd float that out there.
Is Derrick Henry the RB3 in your rankings?
My rankings are linked in the Discord. I think he is. I'm going to just go into the Discord and look because the file that I pinned there is a little different than the one I'm working off of right now. Either RB2 or RB3, though. Straight up projection, Ramondre Stevenson, Derrick Henry, and Christian McCaffrey. I have them all projected for 20 points per game on average. So very close. But the only one that's going in the first round is CMC.
Mm-hmm.
So
I like it. Tim Kelly, new coordinator, D-Hop's coordinator, back in his peak Houston days. It's got to be a plus for D-Hop. Not saying it's going to be that, but I think they're passing more than we think. And my argument against that is they didn't do it with A.J. Brown. I understand it's a new coordinator, so maybe there's an uptick. But, I mean, a lot of the things people just need to see it before they're going to buy into it. So, Rough Draft, if this is your lean, then go heavy Titans, and you're probably going to get an ADP value if this all comes to fruition.
Man, we are just slamming the Titans talk, and I am quite interested because we don't quite get a lot of Titans questions. So thank you for bringing the Titans discussion to the show today. Draft is moving a little bit here. Coming up on pick 118. Oh boy, we got some more Titans questions, don't we? Odell Beckham comes off the board. This is where I will end my allocation to the quarterback position with Daniel Jones. And now I've got DJ, Barkley and Waller paired with Cup for a nice little 3-1 game stack in week 17. And the other one I'm working on requires me to find a Carolina Panther somewhere along the way here to close this thing out.
I like it. Rough Draft says, I love it. Hey, we love it too, man. Thank you for the discussion points. It's really nice. Seriously, talk about anything you guys want. Type in any player, and we'll talk about them. You know, we don't know everything about them, but we all have opinions on everyone getting drafted. So,
yeah, we'll either give you some good advice or we'll make something up. That's what we do here. We're happy to kind of shoot the shit and talk about anything on these streams. That is why we are here. We just love talking about this stuff. Nico Collins, man, for the viewers here that are new, he's one of the players we were pretty high on early in the draft season, Chuck. At this price, though, I'm not clicking on him as much anymore.
No, just the range of guys that go around him is so much different than when he was going 2 rounds later. And I've kind of taken a lean towards Robert Woods recently too, and you can get Robert Woods in the 17th round. So usually just going there if I need Houston. I already have a high percentage of Nico Collins though, so it's not like I'm missing out.
Just because our boy stopped by to talk about the Titans, I will take Chig Okonkwo here.
My man. I hope he. Here's the thing about Chig with D-Hop signing his. So the reason I was high on Chig was because his yards per route run was really high. Like his target share is going to be lower than expected, but he's like D-Hop's not going to interfere with those routes. Like he's not going to get the look as often, but.
Yeah, we had a similar question in Discord a couple of days ago, Chuck, and we're 100% aligned. If you look at routes run across the league, not just on this stream's beloved team, the Tennessee Titans, the tight end position is completely different than the wide receiver position in terms of how coaches allocate playing time. So Hopkins coming to the Titans as a pass catcher is only going to affect the usage of the other wide receivers. 100%, maybe the targets go down for Chig, but the routes run, the snaps played, I don't see much of an impact there. So I'm still interested here. And he has fallen a little bit in his original cost. So he's becoming an even better selection, in my opinion.
I'd love to see him fall back to that 150 range that he started out in when these drafts open. And we have a non-Titans related question from Rough Draft. Raiders and Giants offense, how much are guys like Devontae and Daniel Jones affected by the running back holdouts?
So Devontae Adams and Daniel Jones being affected by the running back holdouts, I don't think they will be. And I promised yesterday to try to not offend anyone who plays the running back position on these shows, but I just tend to agree with the majority opinion in the analyst community here that the running back is a very replaceable position on the football field as far as expected outcomes on plays. I'm not saying there aren't talented players that you'd rather have over others. Of course there are, but I just don't think the efficiency drop and the expected output of these offenses is going to be material, if you will. I think DJ, if you liked him before any risk of Saquon holding out, I think you should like him even with that risk. Devontae Adams, I don't think he will be affected by the lack of Josh Jacobs. Josh McDaniels and the Las Vegas Raiders will still call an offense in a way that will definitely emphasize Adams in the passing game, and they will find a way to be successful without Josh Jacobs if they have to be.
Yeah, I agree with Chris. And the way I'm looking at it is if like these holdouts cause these guys to start falling in ADP, then they just become even better values than they already are. They're already values where they're going.
Okay, I'm making sure I'm caught up on picks here. We discussed the Carolina wide receivers at length yesterday, and I laid out, like in my head, the case for how one of these particular players ends up being better than the others if things work out a certain way. So that is the player I am looking to target here at the end of this round once it finally gets back to me. So for those of you who are multiple-time viewers, you should know which player I'm looking at, and obviously the answer will reveal itself within the next 3 minutes or so, Chuck. But then after that, at pick 147, I still have mild interest in, I don't think the player is there. A Tampa Bay Buccaneer, there's probably a couple around 18 players I could look at.
I think Brian was just talking about Kate Otten in the Discord today. It's one of his favorite late round tight ends.
Man, I just, you know what, though? The thing is the fact that I already have two. I don't know. Give me your thoughts on this. I don't want to just I don't want to have take lock here. I've invested 2 relatively high draft picks in a tight end. Are you done more often than not when you do that? Or are you okay with taking a third tight end?
I think it just depends. If like yesterday I had that debate, I wasn't sure if I needed a six running back more or a third tight end. I think it depends on the roster because I've done both. Like if I have Kelsey, I'm usually just prefer to take a tight end in the 18th round because even if another tight end catches a touchdown, they're still not going to score more than Kelsey in a given week. So it's just for the bye week basically. But with guys like when I have Pitts and Waller, I want to say I've been mixing it up, but probably mostly two tight end builds. Just I'm drafting those guys as elite tight ends. Hopefully they're good. And this is actually a question I was asking myself yesterday. You know, Kyle Pitts, like, does he have a floor of 7 fantasy points? Like, do I need to draft that guy at the end of the draft to try to get that 5-yard touchdown, the 7 fantasy points? So I don't know. And I think yesterday I decided Kyle Pitts does. I think his floor last year was like 5 or less. I don't know. I had him on a bunch of teams, so I remember he scored the exact same low score every week. But could go either way. In the other sites, if you have 20 rounds, then I'm usually still going 3 tight ends almost always, unless I have Andrews or Kelsey. But
I am making a pick here that is influenced by you. Devin Singletary, I think he's going to play every single week. It's not going to be an exciting player, but the fact that I also now have Jake on this team and a little bit of incentive to get some correlation with a Houston Texan on the other side, and the fact that I'm a little light at running back, I'm happy to reach a little bit to get my first share this season of Devin Singletary.
And I'm happy you took him here because I made a comment about him yesterday saying that he was a league average starting running back. I corrected myself to say slightly below average when he was on the Bills, and he finished as the RB24 in half PPR, so slightly below average. I mean, if he finishes the RB24 on Houston, then that's absolutely a smash. Like he's going as what? I don't know, the 45th, 50th running back off the board. If he finishes as a 37th running back, then I'm pretty happy with that.
One of the things we did not discuss with Singletary yesterday that I was thinking about, now that I have the opportunity to mention it, I will, of course. We've got a player that is, yes, we expect the offense to be significantly less efficient than the Buffalo Bills, but there is no Josh Allen rushing threat here. So the goal line opportunities to run in touchdowns, just some of that rushing production in general, there's a bigger pie available to Devin Singletary and Dameon Pierce than there would be on a team like Buffalo. So that is another thing that is working in his favor for opportunities.
I like that. Flo said, "Hey guys, I'm new here. How's it going?" Flo, we're very happy to have you. Thanks for tuning in, contributing to the discussion. We love it. And then All-Star Point Guard had a question on the back end of drafts. If we take AJ, do we get Hurts on the turn to pair with him or go elsewhere like Chubb Adams? So I was taking Hurts a fair amount with AJ Brown, but now it just feels like it's a little bit too much draft capital. And I think in one draft total, I've been able to pair up AJ Brown with Hurts by drafting Hurts in the 3rd round because he fell. But I mean, if you want to stack him with Hurts, I think Hurts is going to finish as a top 3 quarterback almost no matter what, assuming he plays most games. But I don't know. Yeah, I think you could go either way. Chris, do you have like a strong preference there? I think you usually pass up on Hurts, right, when you take AJ? But we talked about stacking, so I don't know.
I'm trying to be a little more intentional about getting some more of the stacks there. One of the combinations I feel like I don't get as much as I probably should is Hurts with Devonta. I'm much more likely to have Hurts with AJ Brown and reach for Jalen Hurts in that 2nd round to do it. Maybe I should be more interested, Chuck, in going with Devonta and Hurts at the round 2-3 turn if it makes it there. Because honestly, I haven't done that at all yet. And so that's one of the things I have been considering with Jalen Hurts. 100% agree with you. Should be a top 5 quarterback as long as he's playing every single week the way that he is used. The rushing expectation is still there. Even if there's regression rushing in the touchdowns in like a negative sense, he scores less touchdowns on the ground than he did last year. Hopefully that means he's throwing for more of the touchdowns. So there's still going to be some points being scored there.
And the thing too with Hurts and AJ Brown, you can pretty much guarantee yourself the AJ Brown Hurts stack because people aren't typically reaching for Hurts unless they have AJ Brown with like that 15th, 16th pick. So, whereas if you take, let's say Devontae or Jalen Hurts with like the 3rd, if you're 3rd overall and you're doing it on the way back at the end of the 2nd round, maybe someone snipes you on Hurts. So it's just one way you can guarantee yourself the stack. And talking about late round tight ends, Stephen B said Foster Moreau in the 18th is a fine pick. He's a guy I have added a bit more in 20 round drafts, but yeah, he's a guy that's getting completely forgotten. Not really touching Jawan Johnson. So, yeah. Oh, and him and Carr reunited. That's a thing too from their time in Las Vegas.
Yes, it's obviously an Carr has always had a pretty. I know this is like surface level, really, really basic analysis. I'm sorry, but Carr has been really, really good with his tight end over the years. Obviously, Darren Waller, Foster Moreau. So I don't mind that call at all. I will say I have taken a little bit of Juwan Johnson when he falls from his like 170 ADP. I've taken him in the 17th round a couple of times, but that free pick of Foster Moreau to me is very similar to going with like a Hunter Henry over a Mike Gesicki. It's like the exact same cost, if you will, in a very similar spot. So pick 166. What do I want to do here? All right. I think I am going to time out. Yeah, I'm going to take Ezekiel Elliott. Little early, but I think there's a ton of upside with wherever he lands. There's really no evidence beyond that because we have no news on what's going on with him. But talked about it a few times on these shows. That's a player I'm trying to get a little more of in this range that I think has more upside than some of the guys going around here.
One other guy I wanted to ask you about, we didn't touch on it yesterday, but Isaiah Pacheco is starting out training camp on the PUP list. I think he just had hand surgery or something, so it's not a major injury or concern that we're worried about. But are you interested more in CEH? I saw some chatter on Twitter about it yesterday.
Absolutely. I mean, the draft capital, I know it's several years ago now, but I mean, they have every incentive to try to squeeze as much as possible out of him for the amount of real life dollars that they're paying to him. Chuck, what I thought you were going to say is Ezekiel Elliott is going to the Kansas City Chiefs. That would be the perfect outcome for me.
That would be great.
So
yeah,
that'd be awesome, huh?
That'd be a good spot for him. Yeah, it'd make it fun, wouldn't it?
All right. I need is a strong word, I guess, to use. This is a little behind his ADP. But Gus Edwards, I have some Raven correlation in the playoffs with Jordan Love auto pick. Hey, shit happens. I did not hit the Q button fast enough. I'll finish the take. I was trying to get Gus Edwards because there's week 15 correlation with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't necessarily think having three quarterbacks after I draft two quarterbacks pretty highly is an optimal strategy. I also don't think this like super kills me here. It's not the worst thing that could happen, but paying attention to how much time is left on the clock, very basic strategy. I highly recommend that you all employ it.
I mean, the way I look at it with three quarterbacks, it just gives you another shot in the playoff weeks, even if it doesn't really add many points during the regular season. What picks at this round are really going to add that many points during the regular season anyway?
I'm not broken up about that happening at all. I think it's there's worse things for sure. Worse things have happened to much better people than me. Okay. All right. I got to think about this now though, because do I want to maximize that and get a Green Bay asset? I don't know if there's going to be one for me to do it with really, Chuck. So I think I'm just going to kind of let that go.
When I I don't know, something about drafting the late round tight ends with the guys that you have quarterbacks. I know you don't want a third tight end though, but just if the tight end scores a touchdown, that's most of his fantasy production. Like, might as well get the points for the quarterback too.
Look back on this team. If this is the team that makes it to the finals, like, why the hell is Jordan Love on this roster? This makes no sense. And you know what? We'll have to come up with some kind of rationale for why we did it on purpose, because no one's going to run back the stream by this point, so it's fine.
Unless this team is the winner. This team wins the whole tournament. We're going to repost this stream, cut clips, package it up.
You know what's going to happen next year? If that happens, everybody's going to be drafting 3 QBs. They're going to be taking at least one that has no correlation whatsoever, because correlation is dead. That's what we're going to do. And that's what we're looking to do here. We're blazing trails, the blind leading the blind, if you will, here in the best ball industry, according to some analysts out there. Hey, look, we make mistakes too, guys. It does happen.
Yeah, and my number 2 piece of advice for this is it's all random and nothing matters anyway.
I like your outlook on life, Chuck. This is why we get along so well. At the end of the day, what does it really matter, right? It's only a $25 contest. It's fine. All right. I may still get the opportunity to get the player I was targeting, by the way. So it is not the end of the world here for me.
And I want to read this comment from Rough Draft before he tunes out. Kyle Pitts meeting his draft spot expectations will be the day I get married. Currently, I'm single, so that's how that's going.
Congratulations on your upcoming marriage this January, right? Yep. That's what we think. So, yeah, man. I think the regression there with Kyle Pitts, it does have to come at some point. The scariest thing of all is just the Atlanta expectation for rushing and the way Arthur Smith calls plays in that offense. Super frustrating for Kyle Pitts fans, but man, it just feels like football malpractice with that player to draft him so highly and not use him more than they have. So I feel like, unfortunately, what feels most likely is Kyle Pitts probably can't wait to get the hell out of Atlanta. I feel like he's going to be a type of player that cashes in somewhere else eventually.
That'll be fun. Go to the Patriots. They love tight ends up there. And Rough Draft said Tyjae Spears, baby. Yep, I'm pretty high on Tyjae. Just if Derrick Henry goes down, anything happens to Derrick Henry, Tyjae is the only other player on the roster.
You know what would be the easier question to answer? I mean, is there anyone that Rough Draft is not high on that's on the Tennessee Titans? I mean, we can't be high on all of them. They're not all going to smash this year. Let's be honest. We can't just keep firing takes every single one of them is going to be good this year. Probably Nick Westbrook-Akine. He's probably low on him, although correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like that's a safe player to be low on. Maybe Kyle Phillips. These are wide receivers that we're not talking about really at all in any aspect of life whatsoever outside of preseason football. But those are the probably the ones that we're lowest on. Chris Moore, maybe another one to be aware of. How about Trayvon Wesco, backup tight end, or Josh Wiley? What is Rough Draft's thoughts on these players? I would be very interested in what he thinks on those Tennessee Titans players.
He probably knows exactly where they went and what they averaged in college.
Chuck, I cannot believe that I was bailed out here. I'm going to get Jaden Reed and have
we'll
some kind of correlation with Jordan Love. Completely did that on purpose.
Rough Draft said we had an XFL wide receiver corps minus Traylon before D-Hop, and Chris is very familiar with the XFL, so.
Dude, there are some XFL wide receiver rooms that may have legitimately been better than the Tennessee Titans wide receiver room. That's not even a joke or me trying to be rude or anything. It's very possible that's the case. All right, I am 3-4-7-2. This is not the craziest build, but I need some chief correlation. And if there's any problem with Isaiah Pacheco, then Clyde Edwards-Helaire does stand to benefit the most. And if Ezekiel Elliott does not join the Kansas City Chiefs, then obviously CH is the best other running back to own down here.
What position are you looking for your last pick coming up?
I don't know. I have not really come up with a plan. I got about 20 picks until that happens. 3-5-7-2. The fact that I have Saquon, Alvin Kamara at the very top here. And if we want to think about Kamara as being closer to the player he's been in the past from an output standpoint, then this is almost like having two elite running backs at the top. So I wouldn't be against being done at the running back position here. I kind of do feel like I want another wide receiver, Chuck, but we'll see what falls. Thankfully, I will not have the temptation of taking Mecole Hardman once again, which if you've been on our shows before, man, I am extremely high on him this year.
And he's the guy that just completely got forgotten about. I feel like his ADP was in the 180s maybe, and now he's undrafted in a lot of drafts.
Yeah, it makes me feel very, very good that one of the players I'm high on is going even lower than he was going when I was first taking him.
Same. My highest drafted player is Juju, and he's fallen 20 spots since I was slamming him. So
he's another player, though, that's I don't think there hasn't been a pup move, at least not yet. And I don't think one's expected. But when New England went through OTAs a little earlier in late spring, he was not participating. So I think that is what has contributed to the drop, Chuck. He hasn't been out there practicing as much. But I just feel like as we get closer to the season, that's going to course correct a little bit. the contract that they gave him, $33 million, very, very sizable amount of money from a team that has been the lowest spending team in the league, believe it or not, in the last few years. Like, yeah, they're very stingy with their purse strings in New England. So to open the bag for someone like Juju Smith-Schuster, they're going to force feed him targets. I don't see how they don't do that this year.
Yep, that was it's a good thesis. I mean, keep the money on the field. All-Star point guard said waiting for Ruff to say Kyle Phillips to the moon, and Ruff said, "You are correct, sir." I've mentioned Kyle Phillips on a stream before. I think I've drafted him 3 times total, so I'm never going to draft him again this season, but he's there. And he said his footwork is nice, though. All-Star point guard feels Ruff's pain. As a Falcons fan, besides London, we basically have an XFL wide receiver core.
Kind of like an XFL wide receiver division. Outside of the players that I have drafted, both South divisions are kind of tough.
Didn't someone signed in the NFL today? Someone got some competition, didn't they, from an XFL?
Oh my God! As a USFL quarterback, and I have a vested interest in this not working out. Alex Magoo of the Birmingham Stallions has joined Green Bay Packer camp. He will be probably competing for the backup job in Green Bay. Green Bay has a lot invested in Jordan Love. I saw Josh Downs go, and I just wanted to read the name Josh. So I don't think that there's any real threat to Jordan Love there. But Alex Magoo, a player that I know we will be interested in daily fantasy when preseason DFS starts in a couple of weeks, Chuck. I am excited for that. I do not know if you are, but I am definitely excited for that.
Oh yeah, I'm excited for sports to kick off. I try to get into baseball every year. I can't do it, and so once NFL preseason starts, I know that the next 6-7 months are just every day, all day sports.
That is, I honestly did not realize he was still available. Brock Purdy. That's quite surprising that he went this late.
Especially he's been moving up, getting hyped up. So we have another comment. I'd like to see Sal Cannella get another NFL shot. I've never heard of this person, but he was a tight end for the XFL. He played for Auburn in college. And...
I need to not react to this right now because I have to finish off my draft. Okay, what do I want to do? What do I need? Any lingering things out here? Well, Chuck, if there is any risk with Breece Hall, I should be interested in Michael Carter. I don't think I'm going to do that here. I think I'm going to take my boy Tank Dell. I have not selected him in a while from the Houston Texans to round out this draft. And now I have sneaky non-quarterback, yet another week 17 game stack, Houston and Tennessee with Tank Dell, goes by the government name of Nathaniel here on Underdog, Devin Singletary from Houston, and Chig Okonkwo, who responded to the very, very popular social media topic of which animal would you choose to be in the same area as for 20 minutes to try to survive. He was like, I'm not worried about no tiger or hippo or lion or whatever the hell the animals were. They have to survive 20 minutes with me. Chuck, that's the type of player I want on all my football teams if I can get him.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a guy who's just going to destroy fantasy football, right?
Yeah. So, Chuck, always a pleasure to do these shows with you. To the viewers, All-Star Point Guard, Rough Draft, always a pleasure to have a lot of commenters throughout the stream. We will be back at some point Friday, Saturday, Sunday with 1 or 2 more streams this week. That's the goal. We usually float that out there and then things kind of fall apart with the staff. But we will be announcing when our next stream is as soon as possible. You'll get notified immediately if you subscribe to the channel. Give a thumbs up on the video. That lets us know you want to see more of this content. We certainly love doing it. So if you guys could do that for us, we would certainly appreciate it. I guess the requirement that we have to do, because we have not done it yet on the show, Chuck, promo code OCCUPY. If you're new to Best Ball, new to potentially Underdog Fantasy, you can sign up using promo code OCCUPY. You'll get a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. That will give you $200 to start playing in contests like Best Ball Mania 4. We do have the Mastiff if you're a high roller, want to enter some lineups for $1,000 here. Small field contest, very interesting. Slow puppy drafts. The fast puppy has filled, or at least the first fast puppy has filled. Slow puppy still on here, $5 entry fee. $200 on here would get you quite a few entries into that contest if you want to scratch the itch and draft the teams like Chuck and I often do, both on and off air. Chuck, that's all I have today. If you have anything for the people, please take us away.
Just I want to thank everyone for watching today. It's a pretty fun discussion. So everyone contributing in the comments, really appreciate you guys. And last thing was Stephen B said, we all have permission to be Lions fans before they win the Super Bowl. Sun God, wide receiver one. So okay, let's do it.
I'll go back to my rankings as we close out the show. I have Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver 4. I have him ahead of Jamar Chase. Maybe I'm a little insane. Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, the Sun God himself, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Jamar Chase. That is my raw top 5 this season, Chuck. So I am 100% on board with that take. I think he's undervalued, even in the second round.
Love it. Let's keep it going on the next draft. Thanks everyone again, and we'll see you guys next time.